The father's justice. Laura, did you forget your wedding ring, or did you take it off before going upstairs with Nathan? I said it under my breath as I stood outside room 1508, the velvet box already in the concierge's hands minutes earlier. The hallway was quiet, carpeted, muted, with soft afternoon light leaking in from the far window. No noise, no movement, just that still, suffocating pause before something breaks. I stepped back down to the cafe across the street, took a seat by the glass, ordered a coffee I didn't touch. At 12:10, the elevator doors opened. Laura came out first, her blouse half-buttoned, fingers shaking as she held the small velvet box. Nathan followed a step behind, saying something sharp, low, but she didn't respond. Then she looked up. Our eyes met through the glass. She froze. No explanation, no script, just that 1 second where everything collapsed. I raised my cup slightly. Not a gesture, just enough. She knew. I didn't move, didn't walk over, didn't say another word, because there was nothing left to say. In that moment, I didn't lose my wife. I lost every illusion I ever built around her. And the only thing I kept asking myself was, how long had she really been gone? My name is Christopher Reed. Most people call me Chris. I work in cybersecurity, the kind of job where you learn to read patterns before they become problems. Laura was different, sharp, articulate, always a step ahead in any room she walked into. She held a senior role in her company, respected, visible, constantly in motion. We had been together 9 years, married for 6. On paper, everything worked. 2 careers moving upward. A house that stayed quiet at night. Weekends that looked exactly like they were supposed to. People called us a power couple, the kind you don't question. Money wasn't an issue. Stability wasn't either. Dinners were planned, calendars synced, and everything was running on schedule. But success doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. At first, it was small. A phone turned face down on the counter. A message answered too quickly. A pause where there used to be conversation. No arguments, no raised voices, just space where something used to exist. And the strange part was, nothing looked broken. So why did it start to feel like something already was? Laura's schedule shifted first. Not dramatically, just enough to notice if you were paying attention. More trips, more late calls, more evenings where she walked in with her laptop still open, saying she was exhausted. Her phone stayed in her hand, even at the kitchen counter, even when we sat across from each other. At some point, the passcode changed. I didn't ask. She stopped wearing her ring, said it felt loose, that she didn't want to lose it. She placed it in a small dish near the sink one night and never picked it up again. Messages became shorter, quick replies, no follow-up, no real presence behind the words. I'm not the jealous type. I read patterns. That's what I do for a living. When a system gets breached, it doesn't crash immediately. It starts with small anomalies. Timing shifts, access points change, and behavior drifts just enough to be ignored. So I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse. I watched, quietly, consistently, the way I would monitor a network that didn't know it had already been compromised. Because I don't chase suspicion. I wait for proof. And something told me it was already there, wasn't it? The trip came up on a Tuesday. Laura said it like it was already decided. A quick business trip. Just a few days. Tight schedule. I offered to book her flight using my miles. She shook her head without looking up, said she already had it handled. That alone felt off. Not wrong, just different. The night before she left, her suitcase sat open on the bed. I walked past the doorway and paused. The clothes didn't match the story. A fitted dress, darker tones, something you don't wear into conference rooms. I leaned against the frame, watching her fold it carefully. Who's going to be there? I asked. She shrugged lightly. Just people from work. You wouldn't know them. She left early the next morning. The house stayed quiet after the door closed. too quiet. Around noon, I walked into the kitchen and saw her iPad on the counter. Laura doesn't forget devices. Not once in 9 years. I picked it up. The screen was already on. Calendar app open. One entry centered in the middle of the screen. Nathan Blake, Hotel Langford, room 1508. The name didn't take long to place. He'd been circling a firm tied to our current deal, the kind of consultant that appears when something sensitive is at stake. I stood there, the light from the window cutting across the screen, reading it again, slower this time. This wasn't jealousy. It shifted into something else, something colder, more precise. Because suddenly, it wasn't about where she was going. It was about why his name was there at all. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't just a marriage problem. This was an intrusion. And somehow, was I the target, wasn't I? I opened her email because it was already there. No passcode, no hesitation, just a screen left exposed on the counter. I didn't scroll aimlessly. I went straight to subject lines, scanning for patterns the way I always do. One thread stopped me. Files from Chris's laptop, see attached. I tapped it once. The message was short, direct. This covers the security schema and access privileges. Scrub the metadata before the meeting. The sender was Laura. The recipient, Nathan Blake. Beneath it, a compressed file, labeled in a way only someone inside would understand. I downloaded a copy to check, opened it on my own machine. The structure was familiar immediately. Directory paths, encryption layers, access hierarchies. It was my architecture. The system I built. The one locked behind biometric access and segmented clearance. I stood up and walked into my office. The room felt colder, not emotionally, just still. I logged into the system and pulled activity logs. Timestamp, late night, just hours before her flight. Device access, my laptop. External connection, USB-C port, active for exactly 4 minutes and 32 seconds. I replayed it in my head, her sitting at my desk, saying she just needed to check an email. I went back to the message, read it again, slower this time. He's not suspicious. That line didn't feel like anger. It landed somewhere deeper, quieter, not betrayal in the way people describe it, something more calculated. This wasn't about hiding an affair anymore. The file wasn't random. It was targeted, structured, useful. I leaned against the desk, looking at the screen without moving. Because at that point, the question wasn't whether she crossed a line. It was how long she had been using me as access. Because she didn't just sleep with another man. She sold me, didn't she? I didn't confront Laura. Not that night. Not the next morning. I closed the laptop, wiped the screen with the side of my hand, and left everything exactly where it was. No sudden moves, no questions that would tip anything off. Instead, I called Victor Hayes. He picked up on the second ring, no greeting, just a quiet, "What do you need?" I gave him the essentials: file transfer, external contact, possible leak tied to an active deal. There was a pause, not hesitation, just calculation. "Send me what you have," he said. We didn't talk about feelings. That wasn't the objective. Evidence was. I pulled the logs, exported session data, stripped it down to timestamps and access points. Victor mirrored the files on his end, running trace routes, checking metadata layers, mapping the path the file had taken after it left my system. The signal wasn't clean. Laura had used a public proxy, probably thinking it would mask her origin. It blurred the trail, but it didn't erase it. Nothing ever really disappears. Victor found the first confirmation within the hour. Nathan's device had accessed the file from a hotel network, same time window as the transfer. Location matched the booking records. I stood by the window while he read out the details, not reacting, just listening. People think covering tracks means deleting files or hiding IPs, but every action leaves something behind: a timestamp, a handshake, a fragment of data that doesn't belong. That's all it takes. I wasn't angry, not in the way people expect. It felt clearer than that, like the moment you finally see the full structure of something you've been analyzing for too long. Because once everything is visible, The next move becomes simple, doesn't it? I built the file that morning, not to trap Laura, but to map Nathan. A clean document on the surface. Inside, a passive beacon stitched into the structure. If he opened it, even once, it would start talking. Device signature, network handshake, location drift. Nothing loud, just a quiet stream of facts. Victor stayed on a separate line, monitoring from his side. No commentary, just short confirmations when something moved. I took the ring from my desk drawer, the one Laura said she didn't want to lose, slid it into a small velvet box, added a folded note. 4 words. I saw everything. No name, no explanation. Then I left it with the concierge at Hotel Langford, instructions to deliver it to room 1508 shortly after noon. By the time I crossed the street to the cafe, the lobby was already filling with afternoon light. I chose a seat facing the entrance. Glass between me and everything else. Ordered coffee. Let it sit untouched. At 11:44, Laura walked in, tote bag over her shoulder, moving straight to the elevators without stopping. 2 minutes later, Nathan followed, calm, composed, like he'd done this before. Victor's voice came through, low and steady. Beacon just activated. He opened it. I didn't look away from the doors. A second later, we've got him. Device is streaming. Somewhere above me, his laptop was giving up everything. Silently, efficiently. Logs, headers, fragments that would tie him back to every move he'd made. At 12:10, the elevator doors opened again. Laura stepped out first, the velvet box already in her hand, fingers tightening around it. She opened it mid-step, stopped, read the note once, then again. Her face changed, not dramatically, just enough. Nathan said something behind her. She didn't answer. She turned, scanning the lobby, then pushed through the doors toward the street. I stayed where I was, didn't stand, didn't wave, didn't follow, because I didn't need to be in that room. I was already in their decisions, wasn't I? Laura came home late, the door closing a little harder than usual, heels set down by the console like she needed the control back. She stood there for a moment, watching me from the living room. "You hacked me," she said, flat, almost rehearsed. I didn't raise my voice. "No, I followed the trail you left." I walked to the table and opened the folder I had prepared. Papers slid across the surface one by one, not rushed, not dramatic, just sequence. Email thread, your account to Nathan Blake. I tapped the first page. File transfer logs, timestamped, from my laptop. Another page. IP routing. Even with the proxy, it resolves back through your session. She tried to interrupt. I kept going. You accessed restricted material, exported it, and transmitted it outside the company. That's not a mistake. That's intent. I kept my tone level simple. That qualifies as unauthorized access and data exfiltration. It's not complicated. It's illegal. She stared at the pages, then at me, searching for something to push back on. It wasn't there. I placed the last document on top. Divorce papers. "Here's how this goes," I said. "You sign. You resign from your position, and you keep this quiet." A pause. Or, "I take everything in that folder to the authorities." Her hands moved, then stopped, like she wasn't sure what they were supposed to do. "You're not serious." "I've never been more serious." Something shifted in her face. Not anger, not denial, just the absence of control. The version of her that managed every room, every conversation, gone. She sank into the chair slowly, the papers still in front of her. Because she wasn't performing anymore. There was no stage left. Was there? The next morning, Laura signed. No argument, no attempt to negotiate. She sat at the same table, the light coming through the window hitting the edge of the papers as she flipped each page. Her hand hesitated once, then moved again, steady enough to finish what she had already lost. She pushed the folder back toward me without a word. By noon, her resignation was public. Personal reasons, a short statement, carefully phrased, just enough to close the door without inviting questions. but questions had already been asked. I didn't send anything directly. I routed the evidence through an encrypted channel. Anonymous. Clean. The board didn't need details, just enough to understand the risk. That was all it took. Nathan didn't last long after that. His access was cut within hours. Contracts terminated. Accounts locked. His name removed from anything that mattered. No announcement. Just silence, where he used to be. No court. No headlines. No noise. The system corrected itself the way it always does when something doesn't belong. Laura packed over the next few days. Boxes by the door. Clothes folded without care. Objects reduced to items. We crossed paths once in the hallway. Neither of us stopped. She left the key on the counter, closed the door behind her. No tears, no apology, just absence. Because some endings don't need to be loud. They just need to be complete. Don't they? 6 months later, Victor and I signed the lease on a smaller office overlooking the water. Glass walls, clean desks, nothing extra. We built it fast, not loud, just precise. The clients came in quietly at first. Referrals, follow-ups, people who had heard how we handled a breach without letting it spread. Reputation travels differently when it's earned under pressure. The work was simple in structure. Identify risk, contain it, document everything. No shortcuts, no assumptions. That became the standard. One evening, I met Grace Foster at a compliance review downtown. We talked over coffee, nothing heavy, just clear conversation that didn't need to be managed. No questions about the past, no space for games. It stayed that way. I didn't replace Laura. You don't swap people like assets. You rebuild, slower, cleaner, with better boundaries. What I learned wasn't complicated. Trust isn't the problem. Placing it in the wrong place is. Money and access don't change people. They reveal them. And control, real control, is staying steady when everything else tries to pull you off balance. If you've been through something like this, say it. Not for sympathy, just to be honest about it. Because I still wonder, which part cuts deeper, the betrayal itself, or realizing you were being used the whole time?